Welcome back to True Democrats, where we try to point the Democratic candidates in this year's 2020 elections in the right direction on how to actually be victorious and to use all the accumulated credit of such things as great economies, jobs, health care, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, to use those in elections, and how the Republicans have tried to attack that and have tried to decimate it and have brought us nothing but economic catastrophes, attacks on this country, pandemics. We try to encourage Democratic candidates to actually use these things in their campaigns, and perhaps we can actually win elections. We have conveniently split up our states among colors, blue and red, and have kind of defined what those voters kind of intent or want out of their federally representative candidates, senators and representatives each, and presidents. And I think we've let that myth, especially in the Democratic Party, sink in, that red actually means stop and do not trespass and try to attempt to take over this state. And some of them are deep red or dark red, and they fail to do that. But there comes a time in history, and this is it, where the Republican policies are so bad that they are so catastrophic that not only does this country sink, but those places in the red states sink just as bad, or if not harder, than those in the blue states. This is the time and place now in order to support these candidates in the red states so we can overturn them, especially in the Senate, where a senator wins this year, they're there for 6 years. And that'll help us all if we can not only turn the Senate, which is possible, but not by one or two senators. You have an opportunity to turn by 6, 7, which helps tremendously as far as having to negotiate, having to make concessions, I'm not even sure. They've outdone the filibuster now so much, so I'm not even sure what it can be used for and what it can't be. But the 60 votes that you need to get through a filibuster, you need as many senators on the Democratic side as you can. But I'd like to say that this is the time where the Democrats have got to the Democratic National Committee, Joe Biden. You need these Democratic senators in order to actually get any kind of your platform, any kind of your agenda. If you want to get your agenda across and make it successful, you have to win. You have to get Democrats out of these red states. And what I like to do is talk today about one of the red states that every liberal would love to see turned and will do anything they can to do it. And this is a prime time and a prime spot. And that's South Carolina with Senator Lindsey Graham. And here's a man who I've never had much faith in or had any kind of true respect for ever since he was part of the House team that impeached Bill Clinton.
I have told you as the best I can, there's no doubt these are high crimes, in my opinion. And this is a hard decision for our country, but when I first spoke to you, I thought we would be better off if Bill Clinton left office.
They started a whole Whitewater investigating, talking about finances. Okay, maybe that was legitimate if it wasn't so cooked up. But okay, they're going to impeach him on some sort of bad property deal. But that's not what it turned out to be. They took him and impeached him for having some comedy time with an intern. That is certainly not a threat to national security. So the whole thing was phony and bogus and was just a kick of dirt on Clinton's shoes. But it was a whole waste of time, and it was definitely something character-wise. Lindsey Graham is on the bottom spectrum. When he got to the Senate, he kind of said, okay, let's sit back. Maybe he's matured. He did a lot of negotiating across the aisle to try to get bills done, which you can kind of admire him for. And, of course, all the conservatives in South Carolina couldn't stand him for that. So his approval rating went down. So I think somewhere after that, he said, okay, enough of this negotiating. I got to stake my claim to my base. And then as President Trump showed up, and any trace of any kind of human dignity that Lindsey Graham once had just totally went right out the window, especially when he was palling around with Senator McCain And President Trump told
he's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
demeaning Senator McCain's 6 years or whatever it was as military hostage. By the way, we should make clear that liberals and everybody, every American, no matter what that military army's political point of view is, any American military guy gets gets captured by a potential enemy, we're all for getting him out, and we all rally behind him. So the fact that he even got away and became president, he said this before he got elected, the fact that people voted for him, I mean, just blows my mind about what's going on here. There's no amount of apathy toward Hillary Clinton that you could have. Okay, don't vote, but you vote for Donald Trump when he would abandon and turn his back on a prisoner of war for the military. I mean, that's the lowest of the low. But people voted for him, and we see what's that done with his backing these rogue Navy SEAL guys who assassinate young boys in the street and take pictures of them, and just everything that's wrong with dictatorships. This President Trump has imitated, and this Lindsey Graham has had his back every step of the way, which is a direct slap in the face to Senator McCain, who has passed away. But to buddy around with somebody of that stature and to kind of stab him in the back by going against all his principles of what he stood for, militarily wise, honor wise, I mean, it's just absurd. But he still had a stronghold in South Carolina. 2020 is a whole different ballgame. And the candidate we can get excited about.
I am Jaime Harrison, and I have formed an exploratory committee to run for the United States Senate against Lindsey Graham.
This is, and I'll tell you what, we are now May 19th, and the odds are getting better and better in his favor. I mean, in his favor. He's got a small shot to win, which is a lot better than any Democrat in a South Carolina Senate race can say in a very long time. And a lot of big donors, some donors, at least one prominent donor, who used to give money to Senator Graham, is now flipped and is putting his money behind Jaime Harrison. And that in itself is a good thing, saying that it's a telling sign that South Carolinians are not satisfied with the work that Senator Graham has done.
I was just in Denmark, South Carolina this weekend, handing out just bottles, hundreds of bottles of water to people because the government, the local town, had been putting chemicals in the water for 10 years. Chemicals that the EPA said that they shouldn't have put in there. And so do you think Lindsey stepped into that town? Did he make a phone call? Did he go there?
And that's true, and it should be, should be noted from the Tom Perez of the Democratic National Committee, and of course Joe Biden, that a lot of these voters in red states are completely dissatisfied.
Yeah, Roland, I tell people this whole red state, blue state stuff is an excuse.
Let's look now at South Carolina. Jaime Harrison, who worked for Jim Clyburn when he was the majority leader of, not the majority leader, when he was the majority whip for the Democratic Party. Since then, Jaime Harrison is the chairman of the South Carolina Democratic Party, solid candidate, and we should do well.
The African-American vote is not a monolith, and you have to campaign understanding that. And so that means, my grandma's generation and my mother's generation, they had different set of experiences, different things and anxieties. And so when I go out and I talk to them, I talk about the issues that are important to them, things like prescription drugs, and making sure that Medicare and Social Security are there for them for the long term. While you talk to younger generations, say my sister's generation, she's in her 20s. I make sure I'm talking about things like the student loan crisis, or I talk about the importance of climate change and making sure that we protect this planet for her kids and my kids and kids all across the country. So there are different things that they are concerned about, and the candidates, and this is what we do in our race, we make sure that we're not only addressing the policy, but we're speaking to it and personalizing it so that it speaks to their hearts as well.
One of the things that bothers me and has always bothered me about these candidates, and I think it has to do with people still taking Clinton playbook, pages out of the Clinton playbook, and they're listening to the voters.
Because really, it's not about Lindsey.
No.
It's about the people.
You're right.
It's about the people in this state that he has ignored time and time again.
And I guess that's you got to do that in a time of peace and prosperity, when there's nothing going on except the cool summer breeze and a couple of crickets making noises. You're going to have to listen to some people and let the voters know that you're paying attention to them. But in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of economic collapse, a pandemic running wild through this country, it's less about listening and about what you're going to do when you become a Senate. And what you're going to do is going to be a complete odds and the difference between the incumbent right now, Senator Lindsey Graham. And Senator Lindsey Graham is giving him tons of ammunition, and you got to be able to use it. And, of course, it's South Carolina is changing a lot.
This is a unique race. We are starting to see the emergence of what I call the New South. And this New South is bold, it's inclusive, it's diverse. We are seeing demographics changes here in South Carolina that we are seeing other places, like in Georgia and North Carolina. Reverse migration, where African Americans generations before moved to the Northeast and to the Midwest, are now coming back home. You're also seeing in this place where we are right now in Charleston, where you're getting a lot of college-educated white voters who are moving from the Northeast here. And it's starting to impact the politics that we have here in South Carolina.
Jaime Harrison has a shot to take this thing. But there's a couple things he's got to do. For one thing, it's a southern red state, which is to say that the voters are easily influenced when you throw a name tag on another candidate. And already the Lindsey Graham's people are doing that to Jaime Harrison, throwing down socialist. And they do that a lot in all through these red states. I mean, that's pretty much, there's a distinct stigma on socialism. What they don't understand is that Social Security is socialism, that Medicaid and Medicare is socialism. But none of these voters of conservatives, none of these middle-class white voters who voted for Lindsey Graham would give up their Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security if they had an option. Of course, what blows my mind is the fact that none of these candidates keep coming after Senator Graham or any of these other Republicans and saying that they do just that. They raise the age for Social Security. They cut the benefits.
Fix entitlements. We're not in debt because we're defending the nation. We're in debt because we made promises we can't keep to Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid. That's why we're in debt.
This is the greatest myth, the greatest right-wing Republican conservative myth that they've been spreading and that has been picked up and the Democrats do not even challenge. First of all that money's coming out of our paychecks, working American paychecks, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. That's to protect us when we get sick and when we retire, but that's being paid for by American workers. They're stealing from American workers, and they're trying to take away what's rightfully ours. The millionaires, billionaires, and corporations in which they give a free ride in this country who don't pay their taxes means they're not contributing to the defense of this country. The military defense, we spend, $600 million on? Millionaires, billionaires, Senator Graham, all Republican senators, corporations got their free ride with their tax cuts from these people. They're not paying their fair share of the defense of this country. That's what's getting us into debt, not Social Security. They're clever little words again, like socialism, entitlements. It's not entitled. We're paying for it, and they're stealing it from us, and they keep getting away from it, and this has got to be an issue 2020, especially there in South Carolina against Lindsey Graham, who's an architect of our Social Security theft, of our Medicare theft. We have to make this into an issue. And we have to make sure that the millionaires, billionaires, corporations, Republicans all pay their dues to the military and the budget that we pay for the military. Keep Medicare expansion away from South Carolinians as though they were dogs in a cage. All South Carolinians pay their taxes, and their tax money goes to enhance Medicare, enhance Medicaid, so that when they're sick and they don't have jobs, they're protected. They're able to be taken care of. Social Security, they're able to have some sort of retirement money when they retire. But the Republicans, and in particular Lindsey Graham, keeps chipping away at it. And for some reason, these Democrats do not come and make that a case. And every time they're thrown that social label, socialist, you got to remind them. Anybody who's throwing socialists at me, they're a threat to your Social Security. They're a threat to your Medicaid and Medicare. And they treat the voters as though they're caged dogs. And they're going to throw them a bone of their Social Security, that they own a piece of meat. You get your Medicaid. So, you want your Social Security check? Here's a bone, but I'm going to give you half the bone. You get it now when you're 67 years old. Or, no, you want a bone? You want Medicare? No, I'm not going to give it to you, even though you paid for it. This has to be an issue, and we have to bring it up. Every time somebody calls you a socialist, you got to remind them that Lindsey Graham is the guy that's trying to take away and cut into your Social Security, which you paid into, and your Medicaid and your Medicare. Another issue I have with Democratic candidates is that they don't answer, they don't retaliate, and they don't stand up to accusations in real time. I mean, case in point now, this whole unmasking of General Flynn.
Individually, we're requesting the unmasking of a political opponent.
Fox News alert, newly declassified documents identifying more than a dozen Obama administration officials involved in the unmasking of Michael Flynn.
Many in the media now downplaying the Michael Flynn unmasking revelations.
Who lied to the FBI, who negotiated, was making calls to these Russians, after the election. And all of a sudden, the big news or the propaganda spin that the Republicans are using is the unmasking in quotes, whatever that means. Why are they putting unmasking in quotes? And they're like it's supposed to be a bad thing. Again, here's those labels again. And the Democrats are not challenging this whole point. The major issue in all these elections, why the Democrats keep losing also, is they allow the Republicans to write the narrative. And they write such nonsense, some things that just are absurd.
Started the birther controversy.
Ebola. What a mess.
All right, so Obamacare has been a monumental failure.
But yet people start to believe them because the Democrats do not challenge them. You have to challenge and write your own narrative. General Flynn was unmasked because he was a criminal, and the FBI's look for criminals. Anybody who is perceived as a threat to this country, as General Flynn was, is going to be investigated by the FBI. They're doing their job, and they arrested him. I don't know what unmasked quotes means. They arrested him. They went and found him out, just like they found out that the Russians influenced this election.
We have high confidence that President Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election.
And helped President Trump get elected. That's what they do. That's their job, and they did it well. And the Republicans are decapitating the FBI and the CIA just because Donald Trump knows that he's more loyal to the Russians than he is to this country, and he needs to get the FBI and CIA, who are hot on his trail, off his trail.
And I love the FBI, and the FBI loves me, 99%. It was the top scum, and the FBI people don't like the top scum.
And Senator Lindsey Graham is an accomplice of President Trump's, and he's slowly decimating the FBI and the CIA. Jaime Harrison has got to go and stand up for that, and he's got to take the side of the FBI. And all Americans are on the side of the FBI. So we need the FBI. But this whole unmasking, basically, where are the Democrats challenging this?
Where's the criminal defense bar?
We're the Criminal Defense Attorneys Association of America. They should be coming to General Flynn's aid.
Listen, the FBI did their job. They took a traitor. They took someone who's negotiating with our enemies. They found him and they arrested him. They did their job. No defense lawyer is stepping up because he's guilty and he's an American enemy and he betrayed this country just as his president did. That's why no defense lawyers are saying anything. The fact that you are in defending this guy is a crime, and we need to challenge him in this election about it. His anti-FBI sentiments have got to be used in this election, and it's got to be an election point. It's got to be an election issue. And we're going to give a little commercial that could be used, or let's push Jamie Harrison's people to try to put the pressure on Senator Graham and his anti-FBI views and how he's systematically in his judicial committee to discredit and degrade the FBI, which is about as un-American as you can possibly do. And by the way, he's going to, in his judiciary committee, he's going to investigate this General Flynn case and the FBI. You know how phony this is? You remember those chants? During the last campaign for president about Hillary Clinton and those illegal emails and how that was a great national disaster and traitorism and everything else and a crime and we're going to lock her up. What has the Republican Party and President Trump done about Hillary Clinton and her emails in 3.5 years? Nothing. Nothing. So you know the legitimacy of these Republican anything. They have their propaganda channel, the Fox party platform, Party News, which again tries to write the president's narrative and keeps making things up, just like they made things up about death panels during Obamacare, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, how this coronavirus is just a flu and it's nothing. And
but I will just say, one of the things you can do if you're healthy, you and your family, it's a great time to just go out, go to a local restaurant. Yeah. Likely you can get in easily.
Nothing this station says is true. Nothing Republicans say is true. And we have to challenge them, and we have to keep bringing that up, especially during this election year. But Senator Lindsey Graham is chasing nothing, and we have to remind the voters every day. Jamie Harrison has to remind the voters every day. Now, we're fortunate enough to have Lindsey Graham as a major player in these stimulus packages for this coronavirus spending. And, of course, his line about this next Corona bill and the passage of the House Corona spending bill, some $3 trillion. What was it? But what did he say?
So July the 31st is when this expires, and I promise you, over our dead bodies, this will get reauthorized. We've got to stop this. You cannot turn on the economy until you get this aberration in the law fixed.
Over his dead body. Well, first of all, the Republicans are responsible for bringing this coronavirus into this country. They cut the funding for the CDC, the Center of Disease Control. So we were totally unprepared, even though they were fully stocked and ready for any kind of disease and pandemic that can come through this country. Oh, by the way, let's point out also that it wasn't completely stocked when Obama had to deal with Ebola, and yet he kept that out of this country. Let's really piss him off. But let's remember that it's the Republicans that cut the funding for this department, that they saw that it was in China. So they let it into this country. We can refer to this virus, not the coronavirus, too much respect for Mexican beer, but we can call it the Trump virus.
And soon they're all going to be better. It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Or the GOP virus.
Well, most importantly, I think what American people have to understand is we need to stop panicking here.
Or the Republican virus. But on top of that, how do you stop the virus? Two ways. or at least contain it. One way to stop it, you got to get a vaccine. We're not going to get that until at least the end of the year. The other way to contain it and to stop it from spreading throughout this country is testing. Guess what the Republicans have yet to do on the 4th month or so that this virus has been in this country, 4.5 months. No testing. The worst testing in a civilized country on the planet. So they are responsible for the spread of this disease and the fact that we have not contained it or know who has it. And yet now that the coronavirus bill is about to run out, or the funding, the unemployment is going to run out in July, Senator Graham, as well as the other Republicans, don't want to extend the money that's going to keep Americans safe and at home. So they compounded the problem, and now they're going to push us out into the streets where the coronavirus can spread and get us killed. This is going to be an issue, and this should be a main issue for Jaime Harrison and his people as they do this Senate campaign. So on top of that, they're not going to give back our tax money. Middle class, working class Americans who pay their taxes, they're not going to give us back our tax money to help us support us while we try to defeat this coronavirus. But they actually took our money, our tax money, and gave it to millionaires, billionaires, and corporations who Senator Lindsey Graham is responsible for giving a free ride to in their tax cuts. Listen, if they don't pay taxes, they don't need to get supported with American tax money. So they don't want to spend more tax money on the working class, keeping them home, but they're going to spend more money or give all our taxes to billionaires and millionaires who do not need the money, corporations who do not need the money. And if the corporations do need the money, then they need to fire the CEO of $1 billion or $1 million corporations. If they didn't save money for particular situations like this, they need to go. But the working people are the first thing that need to be saved because we're the living and breathing, not the corporations. And I'm not sure if anybody wants to be reminded. Of course, every Democratic candidate running for senator has got to remind the people that Donald Trump, with the blessing of the Republican Party, fired these inspector generals. And I wonder why. No, I don't wonder why. I'm sure some of that money, or a lot of that money, is being siphoned off to Steve Mnuchin's buddies and to President Trump's businesses. And Senator Graham is nowhere to be seen. He's not even going to investigate that in any of his judiciary committees. He needs to be held accountable, Senator Graham, and we need to let him, the citizens of South Carolina, have to make sure and make it clear that he needs to get our tax money back and then put back into our economy, and also to extend that unemployment benefits. Since we pay our tax monies, we deserve our tax monies. We can talk about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare also. What's their famous line? Entitlements. Cut entitlements? No, these are not entitlements. What we have to do, and I think I've been trying to say this in most of my shows, is that the Democrats have got to start taking taxes as an issue, and the millionaires and billionaires and corporations have to pay their taxes, and this is the reason why pandemic going through this country, economic collapse, who bailed out the companies the last time? Working class people with their tax money. And we got the short end of the stick, and we're getting the short end of the stick this time too. Jaime Harrison is a strong representative for the people of South Carolina. He needs our backing. If you can contribute and you can donate to him, please do so. And let's try to get his people and himself focused on the hard issues. And we need to pound Senator Graham because we need Jaime Harrison in the Senate by 2021. When Democrats were trying to negotiate with the White House to keep stimulus money away from the corporations, millionaires, and billionaires' pockets, what was Senator Graham doing?
So I am encouraging the president, begging the president to end negotiations now. Write what we have done and let's vote.
When President Trump fired the inspector general who oversaw the distribution of our stimulus money, where was Senator Graham?
And if it's not perfect, we'll try to fix it later, but it is damn good.
We need a senator who will protect our tax money and put it to where we will need it. Jaime Harrison for the U.S. Senate. Folks, have a great day. This is Adam Carr signing off. True Democrats. The FBI and the CIA are our first line of defense against our greatest enemies. Yet the Republicans are doing everything they can to undermine the FBI. Senator Graham is doing his part to break the FBI down for President Trump, who cannot get a loan from an American bank, who creates charities and universities in order to scam and steal money from unsuspecting Americans. Where does President Trump get his money from? Where does President Trump's loyalty lay? Where does Senator Graham's loyalty lay? We need a strong FBI for a strong America. We need a strong FBI for an honest America. Vote Jaime Harrison for the Senate.